Welcome. You've splash landed into this Prosecco-laden podcast, straight into the woo-woo pool with the crew of Ohm-g. We're just a simple group of tragically imperfect and highly empathic BFFs, exploring a wide range of atypical topics with humor, grace, and curiosity. This is Ohm-g. Hello all. Are you childless by choice? Stay tuned for your voice. It's an Ohm-g one-off starring Aaron, Chandra, and Camille. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we welcome your feedback. You inspire us. Welcome to Ohm-g,
the podcast. Welcome back, guys.
Well, we've been pondering this topic and doing an episode on it for quite a while because it's one of those topics that every time we get together, it kind of comes up in some form or fashion. Out of the large group that the crew is, we are the three that have become childless by choice and have just decided not to even go there. And I think a lot of it, I mean, at least for me, now that hindsight's 2020, looking back, a lot of the same reasons that I started on the spiritual path later in life kind of roll into why I made this decision a little bit earlier in life. So it all comes together in certain areas. So I thought it would be a really interesting topic for us to talk about and see if I'm interested to see if you guys feel the same way, if it relates to like some of the things that, have come up later in life, if that has played into the reason why, we all made this decision.
For sure. I think I don't know. I feel like for as far back as I can remember, I have never had a desire to have kids of my own. And, I think we've talked about it on the podcast a couple times, but Christian and I tried this year, which feels like 3,000 years ago, but at the beginning of this year to adopt a 13-year-old, one of our students. And that did not work out for so many reasons. And I feel like through that process, it sort of helped me feel justified in not wanting a kid, regardless of their age or their situation or background or whatever. And I guess, lots of gay couples and lesbians find it difficult or traumatizing to go through that process, and everyone's is different. But for me, I look at it as a blessing because there's got to be a bunch of other people involved, tons of money spent out, a lot of time to go through that process. And so, it was a big learning curve having the kid in our house for 2 months-ish. And after that whole process fell through, I was listening to an audiobook, and in it, the author said about herself, she said something along the lines of, I can't imagine ever wanting children of my own, not really. And I just broke down crying because I felt so that's me, in that moment. And so, Camille has many times before in different contexts said, And so I'm wondering with the two of you, was there any kind of standout moment or moments throughout your lifetime where you just had this inner knowing of this is not for me? And, could you kind of describe those a little bit?
100%.
Yeah, I absolutely have the moment. Yeah.
For me, let me just take you people back. Picture it. The year is 1982 in a lovely lower middle class suburb of Houston, Texas. I am 11 years old, going on 12. My mother is pregnant with my little sister. It is still the early 80s. Things are kind of leveling up for women, but I become very aware throughout my sister's toddlerhood, after her birth, everything, how much more the woman, the wife, the mother had to do than the father, the husband. And it made a huge impression on me, very much so. I love my little sister. She was cute. She was funny, looked like the little Campbell's soup baby, made everyone smile. But I did see very acutely that my mom had to give up an awful lot more than my stepdad. That made a huge impression on me. And yeah, it kind of stuck with me throughout adolescence and into adulthood. So Chandra, how about you?
My moment was circa 1990. It was the summer before my senior year in high school. And I had a babysitting job. So it was children of someone that I think my grandmother worked with at the time. And it was a 3-year-old girl, a 7-year-old boy, and an 11-year-old boy. And the two boys, you know, their bedroom was in the basement. They stayed down there and they played video games or they played outdoors. I mean, they were no problem. The 3-year-old was hell on wheels. Her name was Jana. Oh, sweet Lord. She was a holy terror. Things like she would ask for something. So I'd go into another room to get it. I'd come back into the kitchen and there would be like her holding a cup and like 5 gallons, it seemed like, of water all over the floor. And it would all down her shirt. And I would like, Jana, who spilled the water? And she would look me dead in the eye. I do not know. So after, 2.5 months of that, I'm like,
wow,
whatever cloth I am made of is not what it is going to take to do that for 18 years. So, count me out. Peace out. You guys have at it. This is not for me.
You're like, confess.
Yeah. Well, and I mean,
100%.
One of the things was it brought up a lot of feelings of, I started to treat her like my mother treated me, like just not wanting to deal with it. Just like, please shut up and go away. Just like, as long as you're being nice, as long as you're being good, then I don't really have to put in any effort. Right. And I saw myself like having those feelings. And I'm like, I'm just not going to bring another child into the world to be parented like that. And like we were talking about now, that, the whole journey that we've been on now that we've found our soul family is, back then, all the things that I really didn't like about myself that I thought were character flaws or parts of me that were broken, right? I didn't want another child to be raised to feel like that. Like I thought it was all, like the things I was taught, the things I was told, the environment. Even back then, that's what I felt like, was causing me to like really, really dislike myself at the time. But, now looking back, it's like, okay, a lot of that was symptoms and I really wasn't broken, Yeah. But at the time it was like, I don't want to bring another human into the world to like become 17, 18 years old and feel like I feel. Like that's not fair. I'm just not going to do that.
Gotcha.
I mean, I know that sounds like I'm trying.
And there's so many damn people.
Pity and pathetic, but I mean, it's that's not exactly what I'm going for. But it's just like it wasn't fair to me. It wasn't fair to them. It was just not a necessity.
Yeah. And you didn't want to like repeat that cycle or have the potentiality of repeating it. Right. And there's so many damn people on the planet as it is, like that's kind of my outlook, I guess, when thinking about having a kid of my own. I don't know that the world could handle another Aaron running around. Like I just like at any age, like that's just bizarre to think about. But I also wonder, thinking about like our spiritual paths and stuff, we've all have like different experiences growing up and whatever. But once we like kind of came together as a group and like started forming the podcast and becoming friends and doing intuitive development, I feel like we all started leveling up pretty quickly with our vibrations. And so I'm wondering, do either of you feel like choosing not to have children, that you're able to dedicate more energy to parenting and loving your inner child? I know it's kind of like a loaded question, and I'm sure the like just basic baseline answer is yes, of course. But I guess I'm interested in sort of knowing about, maybe practices or ways that you guys do that.
I would say for me personally, it's probably made me a much better parent to my 4-legged children, whom I love and adore.
Yeah.
I absolutely love and adore my friends' children. And honestly, when I look back, I think I regret not having grandchildren, which a lot of my peer group are going through right now, having grandbabies born. That would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But the actual parent-child relationship, I'm going to default kind of to what Chandra said. at the end of the day, I thought, well, great. What the world needs is another fat, depressed kid. And I don't know that I have the capacity to mold this little soul into something, anything different because I'm doing what I know. So, from a humorous standpoint, humor is the great rescuer for all of us here. If someone asked me when I was in my fertile years, so what about kids? You're going to have kids. No, unfortunately, not many people are making kids I'd let mine play with, so I decided to forego it.
Amen.
Erin,
Amen.
as a teacher, am I lying?
You're putting it nicely, hun. Nicely.
Yeah.
That was a big fear of mine too, is like not only the kid itself, like raising them and trying to make them a functional like member of society, but their friends. Like, what if they hang out with shitty people? And then on top of that, I have to kind of become friends with the kids' parents, right? And then like take them to outings or the movies or sleepovers or birthday parties. And my social battery is very low these days. And so I can't even imagine having to do all of that out of obligation. And I almost wonder, like with teaching specifically, I feel like maybe this is just me. I don't know, teachers who are also parents, like I work with plenty of them, but I wonder if there's like a switch that you just subconsciously have to turn off, because I don't know how you can go through life consciously awake and trying to quote unquote, do the work of like being around 120 kids all day and then also come home and never get a break. Like you're parenting you're cooking for them, you're taking them to practices and recitals and doing things for them on the weekend. Like, I just don't understand how that's possible. Like, I did it for 2 months and was the most depressed I've been in 30 years. So it's clearly not for everyone. But yeah, I don't know.
Even to kind of piggyback on what you were talking about with like having to be friends with their parents and the social battery, the amount of effort that's going to take in addition to and on top of, right? One of the things that caused me to like really, really decide in my heart I had made the right decision, that I was smart in saying no to that particular thing in life, is working in corporate. Some of the people who reported to me had children and had multiple children. They were just one of those people like, 3 is great, 6 is better. Like they just wanted to like have babies and love babies, and that was their thing.
If you got a farm to work, I get it. Otherwise, not so much. Go ahead.
But, it was like she was getting these phone calls of, Sally coughed 3 times, you're going to have to come get her. Or Sally's got a runny nose. She doesn't have a fever, so she can stay here, but she's out of Kleenex. What do you want us to do? Really? I'm doing laundry tonight. The child's got a sleeve. Figure it out. Like, you're calling me at my job to ask me what to do because you ran out of Kleenex. Are there toilet paper rolls? I mean, like just the thought of like having to.
That's bizarre.
The district's legal team weighed in on that. I assure you.
But just the thought of having to deal with like those kind of questions on top of the stupidity questions that you're getting in corporate America, like people looking at you like you have a third eye because you're like, saying that we need to do some work. Shocker.
Right.
I knew that like I would probably end up in jail because there would be no way I could hold it back with questions like that every day. I was just like, okay, if that's what parenthood, especially of like smaller children is, I've totally made the right decision, because I could not have handled that and managing 5-10 people as well. It would have, no, thank you.
And paying bills and such. No way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult enough just taking care of myself, like, much less like another human being. And so I know we kind of chatted about this for a couple minutes before we started recording, but we all are chosen childless with 2 legs, but we have our chosen children of 4 legs. And so I'm wondering what kind of, or do you find that there are still a lot of quote unquote parenting lessons that you get from having like fur kids, for example? Because there definitely are for me.
I think that is an amazing question. So we're going to take a quick break right now, and we will kind of dive into the 4-legged babies when we come back. And we're back. Thanks for hanging in with us. And you're here again with Chandra and Camille and Aaron of Ohm-g. We're just talking about the babies. We're talking about all the children's of the world and how we chose not to have any. But Aaron brought up a really good point of that. Even though for all of us at a much younger age, we decided not to go down that path. We've all ended up with at least one, if not more, fur babies in our life. Aaron asked the question, do we think that there was like parenthood lessons in that? And I absolutely believe that there are, but we'll hold that story for just a minute. But I know we've also talked about like we've all had like very similar things happen in our childhood. We've had that discussion a lot. Do you guys think that there was the control part of the equation came into it? Because when you decide to have fur babies rather than human babies, you get to pick. Like, you can foster for 2 weeks and you can figure out, is this a fit in my life or is it not a fit in my, there's just a lot more control that you have over the dynamic that your family's going to become, right? Do you guys think that was factored into the decision of, just going with the animals instead of the human babies? Because I feel like it is for me a lot. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. First of all, I love my fur babies and they never live long enough, but not one has made it to age 18. I will state that for the record. Not one of them has wrecked my car. Not one of them has knocked up the village idiot. Not one of them has been knocked up by the village idiot. I will never have to raise my grandchildren. I will never have to worry about buying auto insurance for my 16-year-old son. None of this. None of this. I am a control freak. Anyone that knows me could probably attest to that. And my dog looks at me lovingly, has no opinions outside of a stern look at the door or a stern look at the refrigerator. And what I say is golden. And yes, I prefer it this way. Call me selfish, but it's how we roll. How about y'all?
I totally agree. And in my younger years, when I, was making the decision, the word selfish came up a lot.
Oh, yeah. Society.
And mentally in your own mind, you're like, am I being selfish? But yeah, I ended up with, a friend of mine. We were out together one night, of course, just, Friday night having drinks, how you do. And, after about the third,
don't know, explain that if you would.
After about the third glass, bottle, we got into this conversation about the children. And it was a very good conversation. It was very free flowing. And it was like, okay, it would have been more selfish to have brought that child into the world, knowing there's the potential of the type of parent I'm going to be. There's the potential of the mental state that child is going to end up having. There's the reality of knowing exactly how much patience I have to give, and it's not a lot. Like, I feel like it would have been more selfish to have brought the child into the world because, quote unquote, that's what society thinks you should do at the age that you are, quote unquote, than it was to go, you know what? I'm just not made of the stuff that can do that and do it well. So I'm not even going to try. I'm going to leave it to the people that feel like they do have the right stuff and they can do their 2.1 and it'll cover mine. So go ahead.
Blessings upon them.
And it was like that conversation that took that thought away from me. Like, I really got to the point where in my mind, it was like, okay, I'm doing the least selfish thing that I can do, because if I had just had the child to fit into society, that would have been selfish for me, because I would have just been doing it to people please and make sure that I looked like, that I fit into the form that everybody thought a 25 or whatever age person should look like.
Fruitful and multiply.
So.
Exactly. Yeah. All three of us have animals like from rescue organizations or shelters, or that came out of a foster home for a pet. You know what I mean? So it's interesting when we think about like when we consider that question, I guess, at any age, like, are we being selfish by not, having kids or raising them or whatever? And I feel like a big part of my purpose here is to help animals and adopt them and have them fulfill many things about myself and me give them a much better life than they would have had. I mean, we have 3 dogs right now that all came from a shelter. They're all 9. And so most people are like, that's, oh God, they're all going to go around the same time and whatever. And so I can't, like, sometimes I'll just be looking at them and then I'll think about like just mortality. And I'm like, I'm going to be inconsolable. Like, I might have to be institutionalized for a while once one of them, like, I can't even wrap my head around that. And so, there's times that I want another one, but Christian, thankfully, is the voice of reason, his Gemini ass, and it's like, at 4 is hoarding. 4 dogs is hoarding. Like, we need a cat at 3, no more than 3 at a time, and then makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of like grappling with that concept you were talking about, Chandra, of like, is it selfish to not have kids and whatever? And I think that I almost wonder. I've never had this discussion with my parents. I don't know if either of you have, but I wonder if they. Or if they would even admit it if you asked, but I wonder if they thought about that, or if that was a big part of their decision in having kids is the societal pressure, or if they actually really wanted them. Yeah. If that, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I've never had that conversation with my mother because I know I was an accident. That they were married, they just weren't actively trying to start a family. So
sure.
Yeah, I know it was not a decision in any respect. So yeah, but what I thought you were going to ask is, would they admit to maybe our childhood being why we didn't want to have children of our own? Like, would they even admit to that? And, my answer was going to be firmly, no. It has right over the head, no clue. No clue. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But you had asked the question about like lessons that the children that we did choose, have they taught us lessons about the type of parent that we would have been, or, the lessons that we needed to learn that a human child probably wouldn't have been able to teach us as quickly? Because like you said, they're only here for what, 10, 12, 13 years. I mean, things happen a lot faster. You go through stages a lot quicker with the animals. So have you guys identified with any of your pets that, okay, this is the reason this animal came into my life?
Patience is always a good one.
Yeah, for sure. I think prioritizing things too, like not just like financially or with bills or whatever, but just like, like what's important. And we definitely spoil our dogs, but like we'll be out, if we like take a day trip somewhere, like we used to go to Wilmington for the day or Asheville for the day. And so we would do like almost like a hunter-gatherer kind of thing where we felt bad that we were gone for a while. And so we'd come back with toys for them. And so I think like, I don't know. I mean, I had everything that I needed when I was growing up, but there were always things that I still wanted. And so I guess that's sort of like subconsciously me playing out that role as like a dog parent, as like making sure there's not many things that they want because their needs are already met, I don't know. But a big one, like Camille said, is patience for me too. Is it the same for you, Chandra?
I think it is now. Up until now, the only pets that I had were cats. And because they fit in with my lifestyle. They're hyper independent. I'm hyper independent. You go take care of your stuff. I'm over here taking care of my stuff. They don't need you. They want you. Like they're only around. They're only like with the affection and with the attention when they want to be. Otherwise, you get left alone. And granted, based on what we just talked about childhood, that's exactly the type of parent that I was going to be. So, fit. Yeah,
it's definitely on their terms.
But I mean, there was lessons like my soul animal, Grayson. I've talked about him several times. I truly believe that his mission was to kickstart my awakening. Like that animal got me to the point where I could accept a lot of the things that people like you and people like Brenda and people like, everybody else in the podcast have brought into my life. Before that, I don't think I would have been softened enough to accept those things. Do you know does that make sense? So I really think, and the thing is, when he passed away was only about 2 months before like the opportunities to start the developing the intuition and, you know, finding your tribe kind of stuff before, right. He only passed away like 2 months before those things like really started to happen in my life in earnest. So that kind of confirms to me that he was, that was his mission. Now, this little puppykins that we just got, little Peanut,
devil monkey,
little baby Squatch.
Little baby Squat.
I can honestly say I did not want a dog. I did not want a dog. I did not want a dog.
I was curious, but you pursued it.
It was like, you know, do I want to have to get up at 7 o'clock, regardless of the weather, and take out a little animal and clean his little wet feet? No. Like, I don't want to have to.
Yeah.
I didn't want that kind of life change. I didn't want it. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't need it. It wasn't something that I wanted to pursue. I will tell you guys, for months, I just in the pit of my stomach, I had a need, like, I have to get a dog. Chandra, you have to have a dog. No, I don't want a dog. Yeah. I'm going to delete this Pet Finder app off my phone. No, I'm not going to do that. 2 days later, Pet Finder, scrolling like it's nobody's business. Like, where's the baby? Where's my next baby? Like, I could not find the dog. Right. And we'd always said that a friend of ours had a little Shih Tzu named Finley, and he was my heart. We called him Pile of Pudding because he was, when you picked him up, it was like he went limp. It was like he had no bones. And he would just let you like squeeze him and love him. And, you know, whatever way you wanted to do him was fine. He was precious. And I'm not kidding you. I can show, maybe I'll put them on the website. I'll show pictures. This animal is the spitting image of Finley.
It's his Pile of Pudding. It's his cousin, banana salad.
Oh, my precious banana salad. So, you know, I know that was spirit. So I know that there's big lesson coming with this one. So it's kind of, I don't know. It changes the way I think about him and the way that I look at him, because it's like, I know spirit sent him, and I know that there's a bigger purpose than just, you know, like schlepping dog food and picking poop up out of the yard. There's going to be more to this than that. There's something bigger for me in it than that. So that's kind of exciting, like to watch him, his little personality come out and be like, and what are you going to teach me, little man? What are you going to teach me? Yeah.
Yes. So sweet.
So very.
Camille, I know you mentioned patience is a big one for you, Camille. Are there other things that little Chinchilla has taught you? Or I don't even know if I've fully heard the story about how she came into your life.
Well, this would be your cousin, Brenda Sue, was looking for another dog, and she and Leif went up to PetSmart to get dog food for Cooper. They had Project No Kill Rescue up there, and an elderly man who was the foster dad was cuddling a little chinchilla dog on his shoulder. Her name was Princess. It did suit her, and Brenda took that picture, and she said, "Oh my God, this is the sweetest soul I've ever encountered." Sent it home to boyfriend. "Would you be okay if we adopted this dog?" He responds, "No, I want a golden retriever." So she texted me the picture. "I know you like big dogs, but would you consider this dog? Yeah. She's just a wonderful, sweet soul." "Okay, fine. Brenda Sue, will you always dog sit for me when I go out of town?" "Absolutely." Well, it worked out perfectly, let me say. I love my little small dog of 3 years now, Miss Chinchilla. And I have a permanent
She's got a big dog personality, though.
Yes, she does have a big dog personality. And for all of those winter mornings when I have to roll out of my super comfy warm bed at 6:30 a.m. and put on several layers just so someone can go out and pop a squat, I do it. And as grumpy as I can be, when that little face looks up at me while I'm fastening that harness and just looks at me like, "Mama, I love you so much. And I would wait if you needed me to. I wouldn't do that to her. We going out, little Chinch. We going out." So, yeah.
Yes.
It's being needed is unconditional love in the purest form. I mean.
Absolutely.
That's rare.
Absolutely, it is.
And for me, it came on 4 legs.
Well, and we're all, we talk about it all the time. We're all doing the work. We're all trying to get back to love, to loving ourselves, to having the correct type and correct level of empathy for others, and just kind of like being that, just kind of living from that place of love, right? I don't know how people see what that could look like without never having an animal love them.
Right.
Like, because I think that's the closest thing on Earth school, that you'll get to exactly what that's going to look like. I know that sounds very existential, but it feels a lot warmer in my heart than it sounds when you say it out in words, but I really do.
Maybe having an animal is just another form of self-care at the end of the day.
That's also possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I mean, it's a reason to get you out of bed, even on a dark day, or when you feel like, what's the point? Or, when we've all been in really bad places during and way before we started our spiritual journey, and someone that's going to love you unconditionally and needs you to get up so they can pee and have food and cuddle you, and, this little piece of heaven on earth, those little piles of pudding.
And they think the sun rises and sets out of our behinds, y'all. I mean, come on.
And
exactly.
I do have to remind myself of that sometimes. It's like, even though she's tiny, this house, these 4 walls is Gracie's whole world. Like,
yeah. I
mean, even though we've tried to take her outside, if she wants to go outside, we could buy the little kitty harness and we could let her run in the yard. Yeah. That cat has nothing to do with green grass, wants nothing to do with fresh air, scared of a squirrel, just wants nothing to do with it. Even if you hold her and take her outside, she screams her guts out, like, take me back in. So these 4 walls are her whole world. So,
and kitty tree packs don't grow off trees, woman.
So, it's a welcome responsibility, but I mean, I have to take that responsibility seriously, because, that there's got to be some form of enrichment for her. There's got to be more than just eating and pooping and getting your head scratched, 3 times a day. There's got to be more to it than that. And that's my response. I've said yes to the responsibility of enriching that animal's life. Like yeah, exactly. Which, to your point, Erin, it not only like forces you to like get out of the bed and do those things, but it also does force you to take care of yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the getting out of the bed, but even more mentally, because that you've, like, in the parent role, you've got to think for this animal, because they're not able to come up with the things that are going to enrich their lives. Like, you've got to learn their personality and what kind of things do they like? What will they interact with? What's going to make them happy at 2:00 in the afternoon when you and your husband have been gone to work for 6 hours, and, what's going to light her candle at that point, It's just
joy by proxy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Exactly.
Yes. Exactly. And I think, kind of as we're wrapping up this conversation, I don't think at any point any of us have said, like, having children is or is not for anybody else. Like, this is just our personal experience. So we're not like poo-pooing on those of you who have children. Plenty in the group have them and are wonderful parents of their own, and their kids are great. Just like Camille said, I love all of my friends' kids. They're great kids.
And a lot of times members of the podcast, their kids will hang out with us after we record. I mean, they're like part of the crew as well. So
exactly.
They want the dirt.
Exactly. They do. And so, this is just our perspective. And I think that I feel like a lot of people in the quote unquote like spiritual or woo community end up either having really cool kids or not having kids and choosing to have pets or familiars instead. This is just mine, Camillionaire's, and Chandra's perspective on why we've chosen to not have human children, why we think it's the best choice for us.
We've survived.
Yeah. No,
exactly.
Debatable.
Like we were talking about earlier, I think there were, lessons for us to learn by having to make that decision. And I want to say live with the consequences of that decision, but you know what I mean? Like we were talking about before, this
Oh, money in my bank
Yeah.
account? Yes, it's terrible.
That's Amen. The $100,000 that I'm going to get to keep because I don't have to pay for college tuition. Yeah, that. But also just the societal pressures, and if you're sensitive and you're woo, you already are, and have ADHD and check, already
check.
feel like so different. This is the one more societal pressure of you don't fit in the box. It's just like, but still doing it anyway. It was not a choice I don't think any of us took lightly. It was a hard choice to make. Yeah. All right, guys.
For sure.
Worth it in the end for us in our journey. I totally agree. So
we're all smiling right now.
That's exactly right. And I haven't even had wine.
We just wanted to give our listeners a little perspective on why we chose what we chose, because I do think it's one of the many little road signs, road posts that have led us to where we are. So, all right, guys.
Absolutely.
Well, good talking
I know.
to
I love this conversation. I guess we will see you guys on the next episode. All right. Bye, guys.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. Please follow and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review. It's so easy to do and such a huge help for us. We appreciate your interactions so much. Want to join us at our table? Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and join our Facebook community. If you've enjoyed this content and wish to support us, take a look at our Patreon page. All information and links will be in our podcast description. Catch you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.